Hey there guys, so for those of you who don't know, quite an interesting heavyweight fight has just been signed. Manuel Charr is going to be facing Alexander Ustinov for the vacant WBA regular heavyweight title. Now, I like this fight a lot better than the idea of an Ustinov Kendo fight, which was originally being talked about. Because to be perfectly honest, Kendo, in my opinion, should not be fighting for a title. Kendo has been out of the ring for well over 3 years, and he's coming off a loss to Ruslan Chagayev. And I know some people felt the loss was controversial. I disagree. I personally felt that Ruslan Chagayev clearly won that fight. I don't think it was controversial at all. It was competitive, but I thought that Chagayev clearly won the fight. And yeah, I don't think that Kendo, coming off 3 years of inactivity, I really don't think he should be fighting for a world title right away. If he really wanted to fight for the title, he should have stayed busy after the defeat to Chagayev. You know, rather than trying to get an immediate rematch, he should have just fought somebody else in the top 10 and tried to stay busy. But he didn't do that, so he hasn't gotten the title shot, and rightfully so. Manuel Charr has also been out of the ring for a while. I think he hasn't fought in just over a year. He defeated some undefeated guy last year in Germany and won by decision, and that was the last time he fought. But at least he is coming off a win. This is an interesting fight. It's an intriguing one. Now, Ustinov, let's talk about Ustinov for a second. Now, I've been watching Ustinov for a long time. I remember watching him fight Kubrat Pulev live. I watched that one live. It was on, I believe it was the same card as the Alexander Povetkin Hazim Rahman fight. I think that was the same card in Germany, and I remember watching it live. And yeah, it was quite a bad defeat. I mean, it was the only defeat on Ustinov's record, to be fair, but it was quite a bad defeat. I mean, he was walking into that jab all night, and Kubrat Pulev just basically pulverized him for 10 rounds and then took him out in the 11th. So yeah, he really showed his limitations in that fight, Ustinov did. However, since that fight, he has looked pretty good in all his fights. He hasn't really beaten anybody of note. However, the victories that he does have, the most noteworthy victories, are against high-level journeymen. People like, well, when I say high-level, I mean they're journeymen that are very well-known. People like Michael Sprott, who's very well-known in the UK. He also defeated Konstantin Eric. He stopped him. He had a decision victory over David Tua, which is probably his most noteworthy victory. David Tua was considerably past his prime, badly out of shape and ready to retire. I think he retired. Yeah, I think that was his last fight. I'm pretty sure he retired after the Ustinov defeat. So Ustinov doesn't really have a great resume. However, he does have a good record. Like I said, other than Kubrat Pulev, he's undefeated. And if nothing else, I mean, obviously you could look at Ustinov's technical limitations. He doesn't have great defense. He's quite slow and very clumsy, but he has size on his side here. He has a massive size advantage over Manuel Charr. Alexander Ustinov is over 6'8". He weighs, I believe he weighs over 300 pounds, and he is very heavy-handed. So obviously, this guy, against anybody that he fights, he's going to have a puncher's chance. I mean, when you've got a guy that's that big and that heavy-handed, and just that heavy and that imposing, it's obviously going to be a problem. I mean, guys like David Tua, who are shorter heavyweights, and Konstantin Eric and guys like that, they just couldn't get close to Alexander Ustinov. He was just too tall and too big, and they just couldn't get around his jab. And I mean, even I remember watching the David Tua fight. I watched it on YouTube not long after it happened, and yeah, it was just completely one-sided. He couldn't get near him. And I also watched Ustinov's last fight. He fought Rafael Zambanolov, who's another well-known journeyman, and took him out in the first round. So he showed a bit of power. So obviously Ustinov can punch. He is an old heavyweight. He's 40 years old. However, he looks kind of young for 40. He still looks in pretty good shape, considering how big the guy is. I mean, he's just such a big, clumsy-looking guy. But like I said, he's always going to have size in these fights. He's always going to have a puncher's chance. So, yeah, against Manuel Charr, that's going to be very difficult for Manuel Charr to deal with because, like I said, the size, the reach, the weight advantage that he's going to have, Manuel Charr is going to have to work really hard here in order to get to Ustinov. I think it could turn out to be an uphill battle for Charr. Now, Manuel Charr is a fighter who I've always seen as kind of a a European level fighter. I've never seen him as a world level heavyweight or a considerable contender. I mean, you look at the most noteworthy fights he's had in his career. Every time he's stepped up in class, he's lost. He was undefeated back when he first challenged for the world title against Vitaly Klitschko. That fight was in Russia, and Vitaly Klitschko stopped him on a cut in 4 rounds. However, to be fair to Manuel Charr, he did actually put up quite a spirited effort in that fight. He actually did manage to land a lot of shots on Vitaly and make him miss here and there. So, and Vitaly Klitschko, in my opinion, is one of the best heavyweight champions of all time, an all-time great, a legend in the sport. And I actually think that Vitaly Klitschko, even though he was about 43 years old when he fought Manuel Charr, he was still in great shape. And I think that, yeah, Manuel Charr, obviously, like what it's going to be against Ustinov, that was an uphill battle just because of, in addition to Klitschko's boxing ability, I mean, Vitaly is just so big, so tall, again, about 6'8", very long arms, long reach, very athletic, and I think that he just had way too much for Manuel Charr, and Charr just couldn't really, even though he was able to land shots and he was hanging in there at times, he just wasn't really able to deal with the punches from long range. He ended up, like I said, getting cut, and he got stopped by the ringside doctor. His second defeat, I believe, was against Alexander Povetkin. He was brutally knocked out in the 7th round in a fight that was fairly competitive up until that point, but Povetkin, see, at that point, I actually think that the version of Charr, or the version of Povetkin that Charr faced, could have been the best Povetkin we've ever seen, because that was his first fight back after the defeat to Wladimir Klitschko, where Povetkin basically went back to the drawing board and worked on his technique and whatnot, and got himself into better shape. And I think that he was really looking to make a statement in the Manuel Charr fight. So, yeah, there's no shame in losing to that version of Alexander Povetkin, no shame at all. He lost a decision to Johan Duhaupas. I haven't actually seen that fight, but I heard it was pretty one-sided. Johan Duhaupas just outworked and outboxed him, from what I hear. And of course, he was devastatingly knocked out by Mairis Briedis, who of course went on to become the cruiserweight champion. He's the WBC cruiserweight champion. So yeah, Manuel Charr, he has several defeats. I think it's 4 defeats that I just mentioned, but they're all against decent opposition. It's not like he's losing to bums. Okay, he's lost to championship level contenders. So yeah, I don't think that Manuel Charr's a bad fighter, but I don't think that he has the athletic ability. I don't think he has the power. I don't think he has the physical strength, and I just don't think he has the ability to be a serious champion in the heavyweight division. Now, if he is ever going to win a world title, this would be his opportunity, because the fights, I might have mentioned before the fights, it's going to be in Germany. Manuel Charr, although he's Lebanese, he's based in Germany. He's a German citizen, so he's going to have the crowd behind him. He's likely going to have the home advantage. So with Ustinov, I believe Ustinov is from Belarus, or is it Russia or somewhere like that? I don't know. It's one of those places. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I think that Charr's going to be motivated by the home crowd. That's obviously going to give him a lot of confidence. But if I was to make a pick now and to pick a winner, based on all these circumstances, because there's a few more circumstances that I want to talk about, because somebody actually pointed out to me on Facebook the other day that Manuel Charr has had a lot of issues. He's not that long ago had surgery, and he was also shot too, which put him in hospital. And when I mentioned that he's coming off a year's layoff, obviously all of those things are going to be playing on his mind. They could have taken its toll on his body. So we really don't know if he's going to be on form. We don't know if Manuel Charr is going to be in the kind of condition he was when he challenged for the title the first time against Vitaly Klitschko. But if he can kind of wind back the clock a bit and find his momentum again, get himself into the best shape of his career, I could see him outboxing Ustinov. I could, because he does have the better skill, better technique, much quicker feet and quicker hands. But I think it's going to be very difficult for him to get by Ustinov's punches, because Ustinov's just so much bigger and longer. And Ustinov, since he fought this year and did look pretty good, he won by a first round knockout. I think right now he might have momentum on his side, although he's the older man. And I would probably go with Ustinov at this stage, probably by a decision. he has the power to get a knockout, but Manuel Charr, you know, Manuel Charr's quite cute in there. You know, he's got a good tight guard and he moves his upper body in that, and he's not easy to hit clean. I know, obviously, Alexander Povetkin and Maris Breedis knocked him out, but those guys are much more sharper shooting punchers than Ustinov is. Like I said, Ustinov's quite slow and clumsy and big and uncoordinated, whereas those two I just mentioned are very effective pressure fighters. So I'm not quite sure if Ustinov can knock out Manuel Charr. You know, it's going to be an intriguing fight. It is. I heard too that Alexander Povetkin is reportedly going to be fighting on December 15th, most likely against Christian Hammer, who's the mandatory for the WBO title. So clearly he's trying to get himself into the mandatory position to face Joseph Parker. So that'll be an interesting one. I'll probably do a separate video about that if it gets signed. But this fight here, I think it's going to be interesting. It's a difficult one to make a pick for because I just don't know how Manuel Charr's going to be after his layoff and all the stuff that he's gone through and whatnot. But it's brave of him to take this fight. And like I said before, if ever there was an opportunity for him to become a heavyweight champion, this fight here would certainly be that opportunity. So, but I'm gonna go with Ustinov. I think my gut feeling tells me that Ustinov has the size, the power, the momentum, the durability. He has all that stuff to outbox Manuel Charr from long range. And I'm gonna go with Ustinov at this stage, but my opinion may change if I see some training footage and whatnot. So, anyway, let me know what you guys think about this fight, and thanks for watching.